Hello, everyone. We have, it looks like, another interview hot off the presses from Gamescom. So I figured, like the other ones, I would go through and give it a brief read over, kind of put my comments on it. There's also a recent post on the Lodestone that's mostly about mods that I just don't have that much to say about, but there is something at the end that I figured I would bring up just in case people didn't see it, because I think it's very interesting. Anyway, let's have a look at the interview. So, really big headline here. I hope players don't forget we are people too. Yoshi P on community crossovers and consoles. Really big statement. First and foremost, Yoshi P says, via his interpreter, I'd like to say thank you for joining us at Final Fantasy XIV on the first day of Gamescom right at the start. I'm sure you're extremely busy. He's not wrong. It's the first day of Gamescom. It's rare for the interviewee to thank the interviewer for their time before they can get a word in. From what I understand, this is something Yoshi P does a lot, which is really cool. It's just one of another reasons why he's just very, even it says here, thus begins the charm offensive Yoshida. He just has so much charm and so much personality. In a world where reports of players turning against developers are becoming sadly commonplace, Yoshida has built a reputation as one of the most approachable and authentic directors due to his frequent communication with 14's player base. He does honestly communicate way more than most other like AAA developers that I've from games that I've played. I think the people that make Warframe are pretty open and communicative throughout the development of that game, but as far as like AAA stuff, not indie stuff, like Yoshi P is pretty out there. He's talking to people a lot, which is really cool. Hard to dislike the man in charge, absolutely. Even when I've had my issues with the game, I always think about how much clear passion the development team has and just how charming Yoshi P is. Let's see. Obvious place to start. Soon the conversation moves on to the game's player base, a tease about a Switch 2 port, and finally, true to form, a call for the gaming community to come together. Today marks 12 years since A Realm Reborn. Let's start with the news about Final Fantasy XIV and Monster Hunter Wilds collaboration. How did the crossover start? When it's a single game getting a crossover, it's easier to figure out who approached whom. The idea, with both games getting crossover content, did Square Enix approach Capcom or vice versa? 14 development team and the Monster Hunter team at Capcom have a very long-rooted history and a very long connection. It goes back to the PSP with Monster Hunter Portable 2nd G. At that time, I talked with the producer and the director, and we used to talk a lot, just how things were in the games industry. He's gonna go over here. He's talking a lot about how I think they went drinking, and that's kind of where the crossover started. I'm gonna be honest, I said the same thing in my other video. I really just don't know that much about Monster Hunter. I can't really speak about the Capcom team behind Monster Hunter. Because the Final Fantasy series is so narrative heavy, a lot of the fan base cares deeply about its storyline. Do you ever worry that the crossovers like this, some of them might take it too seriously and think, wait a minute, this isn't part of the lore? I have experienced plenty of people saying that. I mean, I think it kind of went out the window once we got the regalia from 15, but I mean, I've seen plenty of people complaining about how crossovers kind of muddy the aesthetic of the game. I'll start with a conclusion first. All of the Final Fantasy XIV players and all of our fans are extremely positive. It applies not only to Final Fantasy XIV, but throughout the Final Fantasy series. Man, I think I spend too much time online, because I sure don't feel that way. But he must have information I don't have. We have a convenient possibility which lies behind this thing we call the interdimensional rift. It serves as a door of sorts where different worlds can connect together, and it provides a possibility of bringing those elements into the story. This time too, for our crossover, we have been working on addressing each of the reasons why the Palico comes into the world of Final Fantasy XIV, and also the elements which you saw in the trailer, why they are presenting themselves in 14, and how that connects with the story. We've been putting a lot of work to present the narrative in the crossover content, and I think all of our fans are really looking forward to experiencing it. In terms of the content in 14, all of the lines from Palico have been reviewed by the main writer for Monster Hunter. That's cool. Also, for our 14 content, which will be in Monster Hunter Wild, that's the Omega Planet Test and the setting for Omega Planet Test, and all of the lines of dialogue on the Monster Hunter Wild side, our team has also been reviewing and supervising that as well. Yeah, I heard, I don't think it's in this interview, but apparently Alpha and Omega are going to show up. It almost makes me want to, like, force my friend to stream them doing the crossover for me so I can see it, because I do not play Monster Hunter. Coming up on the 12th anniversary of Final Fantasy XIV. Time goes on, it just get harder juggling the needs of the existing player base by adding new features, while also making sure that it doesn't become too overwhelming for new players. Xbox players just got it last year for the first time, for example. You sometimes get the longer term players saying things like jobs should be more complicated, and others saying no, make them simpler. Can I double check the intention behind the question? If it's more about the content design or if it's about job mechanics, the answer is I will provide is very different. We have a lot of different elements in Final Fantasy XIV, so I just wanted to make sure I understand the focal points of the question. Job mechanics was just an example of one thing. It was more of a general question about how with each update you decide the balance between adding more and more content without it becoming overwhelming. Thank you. Firstly, regarding existing players, the point came up in one of your previous questions. 14 is a story-driven game, and so the first thing that we place the primary importance on for new players is for them to play through the whole main story, and we want them to enjoy that experience. Absolutely. So we place the most importance on making sure that the player's experience throughout the main scenario is as smooth as it can be for them, and we make sure to follow up accordingly to that. When it comes to the example of job mechanics, it was back at the time of Shadowbringers, so 2 expansions ago, we received a lot of feedback from the players that for the job they were playing, they wanted to have certain actions from another job. We received quite a lot of this feedback, and the general feedback was that they wanted a more averaged out experience for playing each job, so we took that in and acted on that feedback. That's interesting. That is, I remember seeing that feedback from back in Shadowbringers when it was a lot of people saying, Bard, I wish Bard had a 2-minute buff instead of like a 3-minute buff. I wish Ninja, I wish my buff was more like Ninja's where it's every minute or stuff like that. I remember seeing a lot of people complaining about that and wanting to see the buffs line up, and our current 2-minute meta that so many people are bored with is a result of some of that initial, and I mean, I gave that feedback too. I didn't even really play that many other jobs at the time. I remember I really mostly played Monk and Samurai. It was only really like mid Shadowbringers I started branching out to other jobs, but I mean, I had that complaint too. It was like, it'd be nice if Bard's buff lined up with my burst window on Samurai, so that I could more optimally do damage, or I played Ninja too. Like, it'd be nice if I could line up my buffs more easily with like Astrologian or something. And I remember feeling that way. And now I kind of wish we could go back. I wish we could take it all back. And maybe that's what they're doing for 8.0. I'm going to read the rest of this interview. Maybe we'll get there. Let's see. I think either way you look at it, there's no case of this adjustment would be good or this kind of direction or adjustment would be bad. In any case, I think it's more a case of addressing the player's needs. And so when we get that sort of feedback from the players, we make sure to make our adjustments. The thing that I place importance on is making sure that the player's sense of excitement is still there, and I think we always have to keep that in mind and make sure we are working on that feedback accordingly. So I think inevitably that becomes the answer to the question. So there's really no kind of harm or firm this is the correct answer, but inevitably that becomes the answer we take. When it comes to the next expansion, if we took on the player feedback that they want the jobs to be more complicated, and if we made those adjustments, then eventually we'd get the same kind of feedback. We wouldn't be able to satisfy all of our players. So with that in mind, we always aim to make sure we're providing an exciting experience for the players. Having said that, right now we do have something really big planned regarding jobs. At this point in time, I can't share any details, but I do hope players will look forward to an announcement in the future. Remember, in the lead up for Dawn Trail, I remember a lot of people after Endwalker content wise, like battle content wise, DSR and top were fun, but I mean, jobs were at a really boring spot. content was kind of at a boring spot aside from those 2 ultimates. I think the last tier of Savage for Endwalker did a lot of work, but people were really bored. And then in the hype cycle for Dawntrail, they said, we're not going to make any big job changes. And people got really upset. And they said that their goal for 7.0 was to address battle content and make the battle content as exciting as it could be. And that for 8.0, it would be job content. We'd mix up the jobs again and make them feel more unique and update them. And I remember people being very upset. I remember the jokes of, oh, we'll just wait for 8.0 for the game to get interesting again. I remember that. We're now at like the midpoint for Dawntrail with 2 patches left. All of the Dawntrail battle content has been superb. I think it's all been really, really good. So if they said that was our goal, they absolutely succeeded. They absolutely crushed that goal. So I'm trying not to get too excited for job changes in 8.0, but if they said that the goal was to make good battle content and they crushed it in 7.0, I have a lot of faith that if they want to do something big with jobs and make that a goal for 8.0, I have a lot of faith that they'll crush it in 8.0. I don't really want to sit here and make hypotheticals on what they could do. Be here all day. But I'll say I have a lot of faith right now. Final Fantasy series has been evolving ever since the beginning. Oh god, Final Fantasy II didn't have XP in it, for example. Feels like in recent years there seems to be more backlash when new mechanics are introduced. Making 14 online, making 15 open world, making 16 a dark fantasy action game. Wonder if you believe that maybe FF16 would have been better received if it didn't have Final Fantasy in the title, because players bring their own preconceptions as what Final Fantasy means to them. I'm a long-time Final Fantasy fan. I love the games. I played all of them. One of my favorite things about Final Fantasy is how it's a little bit different each time. It's not just the same thing. It's iterative, but it's not, you know, going back to the same well over and over again. They're doing different stuff. 16 is an action game, right? It's not an RPG. I like that. I like that it's different and it's not afraid to take risks. I mean, he mentions Final Fantasy II. The interviewer mentions Final Fantasy II didn't have XP in it. You know, they were taking big swings even with the second one. They didn't work out, but, you know, they were taking big swings immediately. That's one of the things I like the most about Final Fantasy. So what does he have to say here? Apologies if I haven't really accurately taken in the intention of the question. Regarding Final Fantasy 14, 15, and 16, I think in the first place, if they weren't Final Fantasy games, then they wouldn't have been developed. And the reason is that because it's a Final Fantasy, there are so many resources and costs, and quality assurance and efforts put into producing a title of that scope. Mr. Sakaguchi, who was the founding father of the series, said you have to take on a challenge for it to be Final Fantasy. We learned that from him, and so because of that, I've never once felt that things would be different if it didn't have Final Fantasy in the title. But as you mentioned, Final Fantasy is a long-lasting franchise, and now we have many players across the globe. So a lot of different players will have their own preferences on what they say is their favorite Final Fantasy. Yeah, I mean, everyone has a different favorite one, really. Some might say 7, others would say 14, others would say 16, and even others would say 10. So I think Final Fantasy is unique, and that because it's so long-standing, there are so many different titles in the franchise. And so when we develop Final Fantasy and release it as the latest entry, there will be some players who play it and say, oh, this is the best Final Fantasy, and then there will be others who say, this isn't Final Fantasy, and we do understand that on a company level. For the next installment of the Final Fantasy franchise, this is exciting, we are currently discussing it among the company, considering what kind of response players could provide. We're discussing what would be best for the next Final Fantasy, and this discussion is taking place across Square Enix as a company, but as someone who's involved in the franchise working on 14 and 16, I'm sharing my opinions as well. Of course, at this point in time, we can't share any information about the latest installment of the franchise. We were seriously considering and discussing the possibilities, and we will never give up on that challenge. So I do hope that players will look forward to whatever is released in the future. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of wants for a next Final Fantasy game. Again, that could be a video on its own. But yeah, I'm always excited. When Rod Ferguson was still at Blizzard, he was talking about the possibility of Diablo coming to Switch too. He implied it could be difficult to bring a live service game over to a system like that, presumably because some players tend to use it offline. Would that be one of the potential sticking points in perhaps bringing 14 to Switch 2? I'd like to say I don't know exactly the intentions and details behind what Rod mentioned. Neither do I. When it comes to Final Fantasy XIV, when I became in charge and A Realm Reborn was released, of course it was available on PC, but the main platform was PlayStation 3, and so that was already a console. So I consider consoles have a network environment as a given, and I think that goes not only for PlayStation, but also Xbox and Nintendo platforms. To talk a little bit on that, I think a lot of people have been worried about Nintendo's past bad habits with online, and they definitely have had a lot of struggle in that field, right? I will say, as a Switch 2 owner, I think me and my friends have joked about it, but Switch 2 feels like the console where Nintendo figured out how the internet works. Online, everything we've done has been really smooth. I have full faith that if there's any issues with online, I don't think there would be big issues with Switch 2 and online games like 14. Especially when consider the younger players, when they have been born, things such as network connections were already the norm and a given for them, and growing up they've always had that around them. So for me as a developer, I don't really have so much concern about that kind of element. For me, it's my aim to provide 14 and 16 to as many players as possible, and I hope that as many players as possible will be able to enjoy those two games. We're putting in our best efforts to ensure that this happens, and it's fine to convey to your readership that I consider the possibilities very positively, and we are putting in our best efforts, so I hope players would look forward to possibilities in the future, but I ask for a little bit more time. When it comes to existing 14 players, if hypothetically a Switch 2 version was released, they'd have a chance, for example, going through the main story, they could play that on PC and do raiding on the PC. And when it comes to other types of content, they could sit back, relax on the sofa with the Switch 2 in hand, and they could do their gather and crafter content. I'm super excited about that sort of possibility for our players. Oh my god, it'd be awesome. I would get it on Switch 2. When it comes to players who haven't played 14 before, the younger generation players, if they're starting 14 on Switch 2, of course being an MMO, it might be a new genre for them. And it would be super exciting to get these players into this genre and enjoying the game as well. So to this end, we've been discussing with Nintendo, and the discussions have been positive. As you players will look forward to hopefully good news in the future. I'm kind of, at this point, expecting a FanFest announcement that'll be on Switch 2. Obviously we'll see, but it seems like, I remember they were talking about it on Switch 1, which I didn't think would work out. But it seems like in hindsight, those conversations about 14 on Switch 1 turned into Nintendo going, well, maybe we'll wait for Switch 2 and we can put it on Switch 2 instead. That kind of feels like what happened. There are many games out there with large player bases. Final Fantasy XIV is no different, which often have players saying, why don't they just do this? I wish they could just do that. Is there one specific thing you wish people understood more about the game development process? Of course, the players are our customers and they're paying money to play our games. So if it comes to the question of whether I would give them a flat-out request to understand a certain aspect more, I think both from a technical perspective and a workflow perspective, I would not have had that expectation towards the players. That being said, we get a lot of feedback from the players, and they say things like, I want such and such system, I want this type of content. When it comes to the type of things we can do, I will be open and say, this is possible, and give a timeline of, we would be able to do it by such and such a time. When it comes to things which we are not able to do, I would say openly it isn't possible, or I could say that technically it isn't possible yet, but to provide various types of answers based on the situation. So when I'm asked these questions by players, I will be open and provide an honest answer, and when I am asked the reason why it's not possible, it's been my policy right from the start to be open and honest about the reasons. If there's anything I would ask from the players, that I hope they would be open and receptive and listen to the answers I provide, because if they provide me a response along the lines of, well, that's got nothing to do with us, or that's not our problem, it makes me stop and think, okay, well, how should I answer the questions moving forward? If anything, I hope that we would be able to have an open and mutual discussion, because at the end of the day, We are people, and I do hope that we will be able to reach a mutual understanding and continue to openly discuss the possibilities together. I would also like to say something not as a developer of 14 or as a member of Square Enix, but as a member of the game developer community in the industry. I attended opening night for Gamescom, and I can see all the gamers gathered from around the globe. As developers, it's our aspiration and aim to make the best playing experience for all our players to enjoy, and I really hope that players will not forget we are putting in our very best in order to deliver that experience for them. Of course, from a player's perspective, there are games which they might find fun, and there are other games which might not have been fun for them. But at the end of the day, as developers, we're doing our very best to provide the best gaming experience for our players. I really do hope that the players won't forget that. It feels like a lot of the time people do. Of course, right now around the world, there are a lot of big problems and very difficult situations. As a result of that, there's certain feedback that comes up on social media. But I do hope that players don't forget at the end of the day that as developers, we are people too. I really hope we can work on fostering the positive relationship with our players because we are people, and I really hope we can strive together, work on that relationship together, and make it something positive. I mean, me too. You know, it just feels like with the way people are online, it feels like there's just so much negativity and there's such a divorce of the humanity and the person you're talking about and talking to. I feel like as soon as you start being negative online, you forget that you're speaking to another person, and I think that shapes how conversations are had. And I mean, I completely agree. I wish people would be more respectful. I wish I would be more respectful sometimes. I think sometimes I'm a little, you know, divorced from the humanity of the person I'm talking to online. I think it's something we can all strive to do better at. I think too, and maybe this is like too much of a personal tangent for a news video, but like I watched the James Gunn Superman, and I think ever since I've kind of tried to change my approach to how I like look at other people online, whereas before I would maybe think like, oh, this person's annoying, this person's frustrating, this person's whatever. I don't know, I was just thinking about how Superman acts in that movie and how he looks at someone like Lex Luthor, right? Lex Luthor hates him. He dedicates all of this time and energy to hating Superman and wanting to destroy Superman. And Superman looks at that, and even this person who hates him, who's just awful, he still tries to see the good in Lex Luthor. You know, he's this genius with all this money. Think about, you know, if you just focus on something else other than hating Superman, you think about all the good that he could do and he could achieve. And I think analyzing that in Superman has made me try to think about like real life differently, right? Like, you know, if someone's being annoying or I think they're frustrating online, I instead try to think about, instead of let's just push this person away, I try to analyze it as like, well, try to see the good in this person you're talking to. And if you're giving feedback, try to see the good in what you're giving feedback to, so it doesn't just become hate and anger. I don't know, maybe that's too much of a personal tangent for this news video, but that's something I've been thinking about a lot recently. Finally, how are you doing in general? You've worked on 14 for more than a decade now. You produced 16, and you say you've been contributing your opinion on 17. Are you okay? Are you not creatively exhausted? Do we have a way of keeping your energy up? Oh, but I want to hear your thoughts looking at me today. Do I look exhausted or burned out? You're the picture of health. You look like a 20-year-old man. Then there's your answer. I'm all good. God, I hope Yoshi P is good. I don't envy his position sometimes. But yes, that is this article by Chris Scullion here on VGC. Obviously, the links will be below. You know, check it out, give it your traffic. They have a Patreon if you're interested in that. I also briefly want to talk about this Lodestone update. It's mostly about mod usage and culture. I think it's a good read. You should read through it. I don't have a lot to say because I don't really go in the world of mods. It's not something I really pay much attention to. But there's a comment at the end here I want to bring up because a lot of people after FanFest, after the reveals of the dates, did some kind of guesswork about when the expansion would come out, extrapolating, you know, dates from FanFest. And people were expecting it to be really far out. I was kind of expecting it to be really far out after, I think, what is it, October 26th for JP FanFest. He does have something here to say at the end of this. So I was very pleased to announce the next Fan Festival yesterday on the 12th anniversary of Final Fantasy XIV. That wouldn't have been possible without you, our players. Thank you all so much for your support thus far, and we hope to have the pleasure of your company as we continue along this incredible journey for years to come. And one more thing, for those wondering what comes after the Japanese Fan Fest, while I can't give any details yet, rest assured you won't have to wait that long. I'm very interested in what that means. I don't know if that's a direct response to people guessing really far out for the next expansion, like people were saying May. I think some more recent guesses that are a little more hopeful have been saying like January, February, which I think would make sense and be fine. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but he did say this at the end of this Let's Post. Anyway, thanks for watching. Leave a comment and tell me how you think about the article that we looked at and what do you think about Expac release. If you liked this video, then you'll love it when I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/nexusrequiem. I stream whenever I want and I don't make a schedule. Maybe I will someday. And you can watch me. And also, I'm on Blue Sky. I'm Demon's Souls on Blue Sky. Someone got Demon's Souls before I could, so I had to add another S. I don't talk on Twitter anymore because everybody there is a Nazi. Please go to Blue Sky and talk to me about Final Fantasy.